horse has a respiration rate that is higher than his heart rate, known as an inverted respiration rate, then there is a serious problem occurring and you should call your vet immediately. The next vital sign we're going to check are the horse's gut sounds. This is done because the noises that the horse's intestines are making are indicative of what is occurring inside of them. When listening to gut sounds, you are going to be listening for specific noises. A constant rumbling sound is normal and healthy for the horse and is known as borborygmus. A gurgling sound is also normal. You also want to be aware of what you don't want to hear. If you hear a sound like running water in the horse's guts, this is where the intestines are overstimulating themselves. This is called hypermobile. The other possibility when listening for gut sounds is that you won't hear anything at all. This means that that portion of the horse's intestines has shut down and could very well indicate that a colic is occurring. When listening for gut sounds, you will simply lay your head against the horse's flank and listen for noises. I suggest doing this while facing the front of the horse and keeping your body close to his. That way you can both see and feel what he is doing with his body. When checking for gut sounds, you need to make sure to check all 4 quadrants of the horse's guts for noises. 3 quadrants can be perfectly healthy with good rumbling noises, and the 4th one could be experiencing a colic, so be sure that you're very thorough when checking your gut sounds. The quadrants are located in the loin and flank area on both sides of the horse. In order to check all of the gut quadrants, simply work your way from top to bottom around the horse, making sure that you don't miss any. Some gurgling noises. More gurgling noises. Right. Very loud rumbling noises. And some gurgling noises once again. Mystery has a steady rumbling and gurgling noise in all 4 quadrants of his intestines. This means that he has normal and healthy gut sounds. The last vital sign we're going to be checking is the horse's temperature. While this seems like the most obvious health sign that you would check when your horse appears unwell, it is the last one you would look at if you were doing a nose-to-tail inspection. A horse's temperature could be the most telling of when there is an issue within the horse. Any kind of discomfort, pain, or infection can alter the horse's core body temperature noticeably. The normal horse's average temperature is between 99.5 and 101.5 degrees Fahrenheit, with 100.4 degrees being the collective normal temperature. Now, remember that each horse has a unique body temperature, so knowing your horse's normal body temperature can be beneficial when checking for a fever. Also keep in mind that your horse's temperature is changed throughout the day based on normal influences. For example, a horse standing outside on a hot or humid day would have a slightly higher temperature than a horse that was standing outside in the wind. Excitement, nervousness, exercise, or stress can also affect your horse's bodily temperature. Take note of your horse's attitude and overall body language to determine if his temperature is up because he has a sickness or he is just stressed. You should also take note of the time of day in which you take your horse's temperature. Keep in mind that their body temperature will be the lowest in the morning and will raise to its peak sometime in the afternoon. Also keep in mind that a horse's body temperature will be naturally elevated 1 to 2 hours after he has consumed a meal. In order to take your horse's temperature accurately, you need to make sure that you are getting a reading for their internal temperature and not their external one. This means you cannot take their temperature on the skin level or in the mouth, as these places will have a naturally lower temperature than the body's core. To take a horse's temperature, you will use a thermometer in the horse's rectum, making sure to cover it in a lubricant such as petroleum jelly. You will also want to make sure that you keep a towel nearby to clean it off after taking a reading. There are 2 kinds of thermometers you can use to take a horse's temperature. You can use either the digital thermometer or the mercury thermometer. The digital thermometer is the simpler and more commonly seen one. It is as quick and easy as pressing a button and waiting for it to beep at you to tell you it is taking the temperature. The mercury thermometer is a narrow glass tube filled with mercury in the bottom of it that will expand when it is affected by heat. When it does, it will take up more space in the thermometer and show you on a temperature scale how warm its surroundings are. To use a mercury thermometer, you must hold it by the end and shake it down, causing the mercury to fall back into the bottom of the tube. You need to shake it down well below your expected temperature mark, as it will rise with the heat above where you've shaken it down. I prefer to shake mine down below the 98 degree mark just to be safe. Once the mercury is shaken down, you would insert it into the horse's rectum and hold it in there for at least 2 minutes. This is to ensure that the mercury has enough time to expand to its full reading. Due to the nature of the mercury thermometer, it is more accurate than the digital one. I have found the digital thermometer to be less accurate as it tends to show a lower temperature than the horse actually has. Your thermometer choice is up to you. I'm going to take a temperature on both thermometers and then compare the results to see how close they are. We will begin with the digital thermometer. This is the simplest and quickest to use. Now, to take its temperature with the digital thermometer, you're going to need to get a container of petroleum jelly, such as this one, and you're going to need to put your finger into it and gently coat the reading end of the thermometer with the jelly to ensure that it is properly lubricated. You should never stick the end of the thermometer straight into the container of petroleum jelly. You will then move to the rear of the horse, making sure to stand out of the way. You will want to put one hand up on his rump and use that hand to gently move the tail off to the side. When taking a rectal temperature, you should always consider the possibility that there may be manure within the horse's rectum. To avoid taking the temperature of the manure, I suggest inserting the thermometer at an angle so that it is continually running against the rectal wall. While the thermometer is within the horse, hold it against the rectum wall so that you take the temperature of the horse the entire time and not his manure. So, to demonstrate this, lift the tail out of the way, and you're going to insert this at an angle so that it is always touching the rectum wall. Now, while holding it against the rectum wall, you will want to activate your thermometer by pressing the button. This will tell it that it needs to start taking a temperature of the horse's rectum. We'll hold it in place until the thermometer beeps. Okay, and our digital thermometer shows that Mystery has a running temperature of 99.1 degrees Fahrenheit. While this is below the normal range of 99.5 to 101.5, I feel no amount of concern as this is a digital thermometer and, in my experience, they do tend to run a little low. We're going to check with a mercury thermometer now to get more accurate results. Remember that after taking any kind of thermometer reading of the horse's rectum, that you need to properly clean off your thermometer before you do anything else. It's always good to have a towel on hand for such situations as these. To prepare to take a temperature with a mercury thermometer, remember that you are going to need to shake it down so that the mercury within the thermometer is lower than your expected temperature range. We're going to shake this one down just below 98 degrees Fahrenheit. How do you know when you've shaken your mercury thermometer down low enough? Well, you're going to need to read the temperature to check, and sometimes that can be really tricky. Mercury itself is a silvery substance, and within a thermometer like this, it can only be seen from a certain angle. So, in order to read your mercury thermometer, you're going to need to twist and tilt it until you catch a glimpse of the silver line that makes up where the mercury is within the thermometer. This can be difficult if you're not used to it, so you're going to want to turn the thermometer very slowly until you catch sight of it. Once you can see it, you're going to want to see what temperature reading it lines up with, on Fahrenheit side preferably, to determine if you've shaken it down low enough. This one could use just a little bit more shaking. Alright, now that we've shaken our temperature down nearly to the end of the thermometer, we are about ready to take the horse's rectal temperature. Now, just like with the digital thermometer, you're going to want to make sure that you lubricate your thermometer before using it. So, just like before, you're going to get your petroleum jelly, and you're going to stick a finger in, and you're going to gently slather it over the reading end of your mercury thermometer. Remember, whether your thermometer is a digital or a mercury, you will never stick the end of the thermometer straight into the petroleum jelly. Once you've done that, you're ready to take your temperature. Now, just like with your digital thermometer, you're going to want to approach your horse's rear end and put one hand up over his rump. You're going to want to use that same hand to push his tail to the side. You're going to want to insert the end of your mercury thermometer at an angle so that it is always touching the rectum wall while you are taking his temperature. Now remember, when you're taking a temperature with a mercury thermometer, you need to hold it within the horse for at least 2 minutes. So it is always good to have a timer or a watch on hand. The reason we have to take the horse's temperature for 2 minutes at least when using a mercury thermometer is because the mercury needs enough time to expand up through the tube to the point where the horse's core body temperature would be. If you want a good comparison for this, imagine that you're baking a fresh loaf of bread. If you take it out of the oven too soon, it won't be raised up all the way. It may be close, but it's not exactly what you were looking for. If you don't want to hold the mercury thermometer in for the entire duration of the 2 minutes, you can easily take the attached clip that many mercury thermometers have and clip it to the horse's tail. The reason you can't just leave it in there is because the horse may accidentally set the thermometer in, leaving you unable to read a temperature. Once your 2-minute timer is up, you're going to gently remove the thermometer from the horse's rear end. Now, since this is a mercury thermometer, it is much harder to read with the petroleum jelly still on it, so you'll want to clean it quickly before you actually read it. Once you have cleaned your mercury thermometer off, you're going to slowly twist and tilt it until you catch a glimpse of that thin silver lining. Here we go. Now, according to this, Mystery's body temperature is currently at 99.8 degrees Fahrenheit. This shows that there is a difference sometimes between how a mercury and a digital thermometer can take a horse's temperature. As we've seen through example, the digital thermometers can show a lower temperature. So don't automatically panic if you take a horse's temperature with a digital thermometer and it's below your expected range. This concludes our horse health check. We have checked Mystery's appearance for any signs of irregularity or abnormality. We have checked him with our eyes and our hands to make sure that we're not missing anything that we can't necessarily see. We have done a nose-to-tail inspection of Mystery's vital signs, starting with his mucous membranes, his capillary refill, his pulse, his skin palatability, his heart rate, his respiration rate, his gut sounds, and then his temperature. According to our horse health check, Mystery is a very healthy and happy horse.